do, I want to give you guys a caveat on red flags. Okay. This is my favorite thing about red flags, which is different than deal breakers. Okay. So a red flag can actually, if you find out more information, it can turn into an orange flag, and then it can potentially turn into a green flag if the person is willing to work on that thing. So let's just talk really quick about how red flags can go from orange to green, right? Number one, ask questions. Literally ask questions. When you see the red flag, you're like, ooh, that's interesting. That's a little off. But instead of assuming, instead of filling in all the blanks, because you don't know the whole story, you want to get curious. You want to ask them some questions. And that does take courage, especially in the beginning of dating. You don't know them really well. You hear them say something that feels a little off, and you are like maybe still like struggling with people pleasing, struggling because you kind of want them to like you. But it's going to take some courage to ask them about something that just feels a little bit off to you. But it's much better to have that courage than assume that that red flag is all the things that you're starting to think in your brain right now. And because the reality is you're making up a story in your mind. When you see a red flag, you're making up a story in your mind about what that red flag really looks like fully in their life. And so the beauty of getting curious is that it opens up a conversation for connection. The curiosity in asking them about this potential red flag you see actually really could bring you closer to that person because it opens up connection to have a vulnerable conversation. If you do it without criticizing them and coming down on them, being like, hey, I saw you do this and I think that you're XYZ. I mean,
yeah,
that is like recipe for defensiveness.
I know. Listen, no conversation ever goes well if you come out and you say you are XYZ.
Right.
Right. Like we all know that from both sides of the equation. Mm-hmm. The best way to maybe phrase something like this would be like, hey, I actually experienced you as somewhat aggressive here when you didn't get your way. For me, that was a bit concerning. Is there something here that I need to know more about or that you would maybe be open to talking about?
Even that, I feel, would put me a little on edge. I feel like an even maybe better way to say it, babe.
I'm down. Let me know.
Would be like, hey, so, I want to bring something up that kind of stood out to me. And I know I could be creating a story in my mind about this. So I just want to start out and own that. When you said this or when you did this, it kind of put me off. It made me feel like there was some aggression, not towards me, but maybe towards the server, whoever the situation.
Right.
And, I could totally be misreading this and maybe creating this story in my mind, but I did want to bring that up and just have an honest conversation about maybe what's really going on there.
That is a better way. That's a better way.
I think really framing it as a story you're creating in your mind is great if you're witnessing their behavior. Now, if they tell you I smoke weed and you are like, I don't really love that, then
I have a story in my mind that you are smoking weed.
Right.
No, I'm literally lighting up and smoking. That's not a story.
That's not a story. You just told me you smoke weed, right? So then you ask them, oh, okay, that's interesting. So is that something that like you do a lot, or like what's your take on smoking weed? Like, how did you get to the position where you thought that was maybe an okay thing?
Right.
And start asking curious questions without judgment just to find out more,
Yeah.
Like it's just, that might not work for you if they smoke weed sometimes and they're Christian, because that's not super common from what I experience. However, hey, find out more information before saying nope. And, oh gosh, we're going to talk about this in another episode, so I can't go into it. But like drinking and things, like people are like, if someone orders a drink on the first date, they're like, I'm gone. You're gone. And I'm like, why don't you find out more information? My goodness gracious.
Yeah. And I think, what I love about how you brought it up is it's an opportunity to talk about it. And the way that they respond tells a lot about them.
Right.
Right. Like whatever it is, aggression, a smoking issue, an obsession issue, an identity issue, the way they respond really does kind of reveal how much forethought have they put into this action or behavior. And more importantly, is this something that they're open to changing?
Right. So that's like step 2 is paying attention to how they're responding to your questions. Because are they defensive? Do they not see whatever you're bringing up as a problem? Or do they already have awareness about that red flag you're bringing up? And are they potentially already working on that thing? Because there's a difference there.
Or are they aware and just not wanting to work on it?
Right, exactly. Which you won't know that through time. But sometimes people are like, hey, yeah, that is something. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, I'm not proud of that. I actually have been working on that. And see, whereas you could have just eliminated them from the red flag if you have that conversation and they say, hey, like, yes, that they humble themselves and they admit to it and they say, I am actually actively working on that. That could be maybe something you could work with.
Yeah.
But then you have to go to step 3, which is you need to watch through time if that thing actively changes, right? Like if they're saying, yeah, this is something I'm not really a big fan of, and I'm working on it, then step 3 is, okay, they're saying that they recognize that they're working on it. Then you need to step 3, watch through time if it actually changes.
And the best way to do this is, I love this exercise so much. Mm-hmm. If we had this conversation a month ago and we're revisiting it a month later or 2 months later, like we've still consistently dated through that red flag and we've kind of held that tension, they might come to you and give you a whole essay on what's been going on or what's been different or what they've been learning. But my favorite exercise when it comes to evaluating someone is to hit the mute button on their words and evaluate the actions of their life in that time frame. Because honestly, especially with more charismatic characters, people can spin some really nice stories. Mm-hmm. And they can give some really, really great excuses.
Yep.
But your actions tell the real story.
Yes.
Your actions tell me where your priorities are. Your actions tell me where your heart is. Your actions tell me if this is actually important to change or not.
Yeah.
Your words, anyone can say words.
Yeah.
But
so
your
true.
actions tell me everything I need to know.
So good, babe. Another thing where if they say they want to change this thing that you're bringing up, you have to keep in mind as well that some people have a performance button in them where they want to perform to please the other person or get them to like them and choose them. So something that you have to ask yourself as well is, are they changing because they actually want to change, or are they only changing to try to win you over?
Yes.
Because if they're just changing to try to win you over, it won't be long lasting, or it could cause actually resentment through time. So you want to ask the question, you may be bringing it up. Maybe it's the first time it's being brought up. You still might be able to work with that. And it could be an orange flag through time. If they're also convicted by Jesus and are like, I would work on this, whether you're in the picture or not. Right. So you have to ask yourself the question, would they change this thing even if I was not in their life? Like, would this be something that they would actively work on? Or if I dropped out of the relationship tomorrow, would they stop working on this thing?
Exactly. And you know what that is? It's having a strong why. Mm-hmm. And if you want to change your behavior, if you want to grow as a man or as a woman, your why has to be bigger than the person who you are romantically interested in.
Yeah.
Like, your why has to be bigger than their desire and you wanting to please them and change and make the relationship work.
Yeah, so good. So some red flags can turn to orange, can turn to green actually through time, because we are all imperfect people with some level of red flags.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, my question for you is, what are some major red flags